Well, it turns out that there are 7 criteria that the readers are looking for when they're evaluating your essay. Now, the College Board won't tell you that. The College Board says that the readers are going to grade your essay holistically, whatever that means. Any idea, Jason, what that means?
No idea what holistically means.
Nobody else does either, so it's okay. But really, there's 7 criteria that all college teachers, English teachers, anyone who understands good writing is going to apply to evaluate an essay. So even though they're not explicitly stated, these are the underlying criteria that you should be thinking about, because those are the underlying criteria that will be applied to evaluation of your essay. So I call these rules of engagement. So there's 7 rules of engagement. And if you get these 7 down, that will get you a double-digit essay score. So 7 rules of engagement. Now the first one is pretty easy. The first one is the same rule that every English teacher has ever told you need for any kind of essay you're going to write. And that would be what?
Structure.
Structure is one, but even before that, before structure, you have to have a
Thesis.
A thesis, exactly. So Jason says we need a thesis. And Charlie, true or false? The thesis is going to be the most difficult part constructing your essay.
True.
False. The essay thesis is going to be the easiest part of constructing your writing, because they're going to give it to you on a silver platter. Anybody know what it's called? It's called the prompt, exactly. It's the prompt that we talked about earlier. College Board is going to give it to you on a silver platter. You don't have to think about what your thesis is. You just think about how you're going to have to support it. So the prompt is going to be there. It's always a universal prompt, like I talked about previously. Is creativity necessary in the modern world? Is progress important? Does every advance involve some loss or sacrifice? So it's very, very open-ended. Broad thesis that anybody, anywhere in the country can tackle and support. So 2, you've got your thesis. It's given to you when the College Board presents the first page of the test to you. It's called assignment, and it's down in big black and bold on the first page. The College Board will give you a quote box with some quotes that may or may not be helpful. Sometimes you can just skip the quotes entirely and go down to the big black and bold word assignment, where the prompt will be listed. Sometimes it's helpful to look at the quotes, and sometimes you can even use the quotes to incorporate them into your own essay. Now, you've got the thesis, but you've got to fold this thesis into an essay. And Charlie mentioned that one of the other key components of essays is structure, organization and structure. So you've got to have the right kind of structure to impress the readers. And the structure here means really the classic 5-paragraph essay. 5-paragraph essay. And what does that mean? Any ideas?
Right, 5.
5 paragraphs, sure. And what do those paragraphs comprise?
Intro, body.
An intro. Good.
Bodies.
Intro. And what?
3 bodies.
Bodies. And then a conclusion. Now the intro is going to have not just the thesis. It's going to have supporting evidence for the thesis. In other words, you don't want to start right off with the thesis that the College Board gives you. You want to be able to create some context for the thesis, some helpful idea to the reader about how you're going to support your essay thesis. And the way you do that is by having 2 things included in the intro, Q and A. What does Q and A stand for?
Question and answer.
No, thank you for playing, but it's not. It's quotes and anecdotes. In other words, the 2 ways to get a good intro cooking is to have some quotes that will support your thesis, or to have some anecdote that will support your thesis. Now, everybody knows what quotes are. How about anecdotes?
No idea. Example story?
Aren't they like something that you've done?
Something you've done, or something somebody else has done? A small
It's
little,
like a list.
small little cryptic description of somebody who's accomplished something in some interesting way. So for our intro, 2 things we want to fold into the intro, so that we've got a broad, sweeping, general context to start. quotes and anecdotes. Now, an anecdote, anybody know what it is?
It's a short story.
Short story, a real compact short story, somewhat cryptic, that tells about somebody who's done something interesting or important. For example, you'd say, R.H. Macy went bankrupt 7 times before he finally succeeded with the department store that bears his name. You've all heard of it, Macy's? Okay, 7 times he went bankrupt before he finally achieved success. So that fits into our pattern of what? Overcoming obstacles, meeting challenges, and achieving progress. Yeah. So, and we know that those are the key components of any SAT essay. So that's one way to get off on the right track and support your thesis with some extra contextual information. Context is the thing. You don't just want a thesis, you want to supply some context to the thesis. In cinema, for example, the camera often, before the scene begins, before the action begins, it pans across the landscape and then zooms in on the main characters for more specific information. But the camera will set up a contextual shot. And you want to do the same thing in your essays. You want to set up some broad contextual information that will support your thesis and allow you to move into the rest of your essay with confidence.
Hey,
Yes.
Tom?
Yeah.
What if we don't have enough time to write a 5-paragraph essay?
Well, a couple of things. If you only write 4 paragraphs, you could get away with it as long as your paragraphs are concentrated and full of detail and long. But if they're short, if you only have 4 paragraphs, you're not going to be able to finish both pages of white space, right? And if you don't finish both pages of white space, if you don't fill up both pages, your score is going to drop. It's that simple. If you fill up a page and a half, then you may be lucky to get a 9, and you may more likely get a 6 or a 7. Yes?
I think I did 4 paragraphs, but it filled up both because I just read a lot of details. So is it okay if I just do 4? But it's
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you fill in a lot of detail, you'll be okay with 4 paragraphs.
Okay.
Because the key thing is to be able to keep the pencil moving and provide a lot of detail. One thing I haven't talked about yet, but I should have mentioned earlier, is that when you do these 2 pages of terrifying white space, you got 2 pages here. You've got about 25 lines per page, which is a total of, math question, 50 lines. And if you write 8 words per line, that gets you a total of 400 words per essay. And that's usually good for a 10. It's important to be able to fill up both pages of white space and not write big, write small. And if you've got 9 words per line, then you're up into the area of 450 words. And that's really going to get you a top scoring essay, because one of the most important things in essay writing is not just grammar, style, and substance, but in the SAT essay, it's also filling up 2 pages of white space with as much detail as you can. And we'll see that in a little more concrete way a little bit further on. But let me move now from anecdotes to quotes, another way to impress the reader and provide some context for your thesis in your introduction. So quotes. For example, the German philosopher Nietzsche once said, "Whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger." And Kanye West came up and used that in the song too. So it's both intellectual and it's also street. And you can go either way you want. You can quote Nietzsche or you can quote Kanye West. Impress the readers either way because you're quoting something interesting. Now what does that quote have to do with our basic paradigm of overcoming obstacles, meeting challenges, and achieving success? Whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger. It's the context that we've been talking about, how you overcome obstacles, and you may have difficulties, but you rise above them, and at some point you overcome. So you want some quotes like that, or some anecdotes like the one we talked about with Macy, just to set up your thesis. So we were talking about every advance involves some loss or sacrifice. Would Nietzsche's quote or Kanye West's quote be good?
Yeah.
Whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Exactly. So you can throw it in with quotes and sound authoritative. So we got quotes and anecdotes as 2 key components of the intro, along with the thesis. Now where does the thesis come? Does it come in the beginning or does it come in the end of the intro? It comes in the end, exactly. You don't want to start off with a thesis. You want to start off with some broad, sweeping statements that clarify the context in which you're going to be working. You want to throw in some anecdotes or throw in a quote, and then you want to go to your thesis. And after your thesis, you're going to provide a roadmap to the reader, and the roadmap is going to tell the reader where you're going in the rest of your essay, what kind of content examples you're going to use to further support your thesis. So those are the things that we need to incorporate in an intro. In addition to the intro, we need a conclusion. And I'm going to skip over the body paragraphs right now and go directly to the conclusion. So Jason, true or false? Conclusion is going to be the most difficult part of your essay.
False.
That's right. It's going to be the easiest. How come? Why is it going to be the easiest? Because your conclusion is simply going to do what? Any ideas?
Restate the intro.
Restate the intro and restate the body paragraphs that you've got. Basically, your conclusion, all you're going to do is summarize what you've already talked about. You keep the pencil moving, keep the word count up, and then throw in, at the end, either another anecdote or another quote to wrap things up. So the conclusion will be the easiest part of your essay. So don't lose any sleep over that. So the intro requires a little more fabrication. Conclusion, piece of cake. Body paragraphs. So we need 3 bodies, preferably live. And these are your content examples. Content examples. And your content examples are going to be picked out of your bag of tricks, your prefabricated bag of tricks, where you've got content examples already prepared, and you're going to be able to spin them to whatever thesis or whatever prompt the College Board has thrown at you. So content examples. Where are our content examples going to come from? Any ideas? Yeah.
Like books we've read.
Books you've read, exactly. Books in school.
Movies.
Movies. You can use movies, sure. What else?
Music.
Music, exactly.
Personal experiences.
Personal experience is good. Exactly.
Historical events.
Historical events, absolutely. Anything else?
Killer SAT book.
The Killer SAT book is, actually the book is full of content examples from former students in all those areas and activities that we've talked about already, including sports and technology and movies, literature, even trash novels like
Twilight.
Twilight, exactly. Can you use Twilight? Yes. How come? Because what has the heroine done? Overcome obstacles, met challenges, achieve progress, individual, social, or both. So we've talked about the conclusion, talked about the intro, and kind of gave a general impression of what we need for our body paragraphs. Now we're going to come back to the body paragraphs in much more detail in a little bit. But first, I want to go back to the 7 rules of engagement and talk about number 3.